All right, guys, thanks for all the reports on the rain, and even those that haven't had much in the way of rain. Appreciate your comments and reports. Those do help in trying to gauge the full grasp of our situation that is starting to evolve more and more here into wave country. Hello, everyone. Good morning to you. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. It is a wave weather alert day. We haven't had to say that in a long time. But it also means some rain, as obviously in the forecast. We're talking about alert days, and we do have some of that. I really think of all the different elements and threats we were to line up when it comes to your typical tornado, hail, straight line winds, and flash flooding. I think flash flooding is likely going to be up there as one of the higher end ones. And you may not think about that considering that we are in a drought, but that's the problem. As we're in a drought, the ground has basically become a more concrete type scenario, so water does not have a chance to soak into the ground if it falls too hard. Therefore, it treats it like it would concrete. It rolls off of it, and it rolls right into the streets, into the sidewalks, pulls up into areas, especially in downtown urban areas, more impacted by this. But you get more of a runoff, kind of like what you would see all the time on the video feeds. You may have been watching out of the desert out west. And when they get heavy rain, they get these rapid flash floodings. And you're thinking they need so much rain. Why would they have flash flooding so much? Well, it's because the ground is like concrete, and therefore they end up with some big time problems with flooding, and terrain is a big ordeal. To add on to that, something a little different with this one is that we do have, of course, some leaves that have been falling. So some of that has probably gotten into the storm drain. So if you have one near your house, your neighborhood, you may want to go ahead and kind of get that, cleared out of the way just to ease the pain there of the flooding that could happen later on tonight. Before I get into the weather side of things, for those of you who've been watching on the TV side, on social media, obviously there's been some breaking news coming in out of Bardstown, Kentucky, with the case involving Crystal Rogers. They're going to probably have an update here on the streaming side in about 20 minutes from now. I may get kicked out here for that, so I'll let you know if that's happening. Otherwise, we'll, of course, have a full rundown today at 11 o'clock. This morning here on midday. All right, let's dive into it. Let's see where we stand, where we are currently, and where we're going. We'll start with the live look here on Accordion. You can see the clouds kind of just looks like rain, right? Kind of got the darkness of the clouds closer to the ground, a little lighter to the tops of them there. This is not a severe thunderstorm scenario. This is just basically a wall of rain moving your way into Harrison County. It was thunderstorms at one point, but now it's eased off to just mainly just a batch of rain that'd be pushing through, I would say, over the next 1 to 2 hours before it fizzles out completely. Here's what it looks like on the radar. You can see it's busy. We had one round of scattered showers and storms this morning. Louisville's been missed many times. We had the outflow, what we call a little wave of wind, a mini cold front that came from the storms out of Oldham County. Yesterday, that passed through. Even my yard, the gauges went up to about 20 miles per hour when that outflow came by, but we got no rain out of it. So it did cool us down for a nice evening. But we've had some activity around. Indiana was mainly your show yesterday. Today, it's really both sides of the Ohio dealing with some scattering of showers and storms. It's worth noting that what you're looking at here as of this moment, 9:38 a.m., we do not have any severe weather taking place in our inner 30 counties. Okay, now this batch of rain is running out of gas here soon. It will continue to fade out. However, it will act as a mini cold front, if you will, and will continue to advance into eastern Kentucky, where they are about done with the rain here. The sun's going to try to come out. They will have a chance then to heat up to where by the time this feature in Evansville arrives, that is where the first round of severe thunderstorm warnings could come out. And that'd be a little closer to I-75, not so much I-65. So that's the first piece that we're trying to resolve. And that's going to get us to about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon, would be how the rain in Evansville disintegrates, but creates a cool wave still that will continue across the Commonwealth, crosses I-65, and then powers up for strong thunderstorms for this afternoon between I-65 and I-75. Again, that's part one that we're talking about. Right now, you can see it's a good soaking rain. I wish this was more widespread. This is what we need. We need a very gentle, light to maybe moderate rain, nothing too heavy to cause flooding issues, a light enough rain to where it doesn't run off the hard ground so rapidly. It has a chance to slow down and soak into the ground, and therefore becomes a big player in helping out with the drought scenario, which, by the way, we get a drought update tomorrow. But considering this rain that we have now will not be considered in the drought decision tomorrow. You know the drought map tomorrow is going to be a little aggressive, but this happens sometimes and there's overlapping, but you get the idea. So what happens after that? Well, that passes on through the area, and then we have yet another round later on for tonight. Here's looking at the storm fuel, and you can see I animated this for the afternoon. You got the current blob of cooler weather in Evansville, rain, cold air, moves over Louisville, and then you see how the reds start to enhance a little more. That's fuel, what we're talking about here. All right, this doesn't mean tornadoes or anything like that. This is fuel. And notice it does enhance more into the brighter reds into eastern Kentucky, Lexington, Frankfort, perhaps even as far south as into Columbia, Gravel Switch, Springfield, Kentucky. You may be on the southern end of that. So that would be, again, roughly 3 or 4 o'clock today. If they could fire, you are the ones to watch to see how this second little wave does respond. While Louisville and back toward Evansville, we had a chance to have some rain, cold air through at least lunch. But if you also look at the same animation I'm showing you, look what's happening to the west of us. We're starting to rebuild more of the red, right? We still got some daylight to work with. So that's going to fuel the next round of showers and storms that will then begin to approach. That'll track right along I-64, but they will have a little more of a push south at the same time. So the storm motion tonight for these thunderstorms, the second round, will be east, but they're also getting another push south. So I guess southeast is the best way to describe it. So there is a chance that some of this could miss a lot of you in Indiana. The second piece could. And could it miss Louisville? This second piece. It's possible. It's going to be close, real close to see how that develops and then begins that southeast turn. It could be as close to as, say, southern Jefferson County and Bullitt County could be right on the fringe of the heavier rain. And then north of that line, you may not get the afternoon evening round. So just be aware of that, okay? It's not set in stone yet. We got to see how this develops, and then we'll know for sure how this will play out north or south as far as the metro goes. But right now, there is at least a risk. I think I swallowed a fly. There's at least a risk for this to hold on to where it could actually skip a little more south than it will north. Here is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. It is a slight risk. This is why we moved up to the alert day. It's a very focused slight risk. I mean, it's right in our backyard. Just about everyone's included on that. And it's certainly the I-64 corridor. And I think for good reason. It's accounting for really what's going to happen more so later this afternoon tonight, how they develop back around Evansville and then sink southeast. That's really my gut on majority of why that decision was made for the slight risk. When you break it down, 1-inch hail potential, it's there. There is certainly a slight up in the scaling on this. Right now I'm thinking nickel, maybe up to quarter size, but I think a lot of dime size, a lot of pea size, but dime size, maybe up to nickel, could be some of the common themes with the hail. But don't be surprised if you hear the little dinging outside on your roof or in your car, that it would be hail falling. I do think this is a hail scenario. So yes, you can get some. Are we talking about baseball size, softball size hail? No, this environment is not for that. But enough to get your attention. And as I mentioned the other day on, I think it was 3 o'clock, rainbows after a storm and hail are probably the two most photogenic things that we see on the Wave Weather app. And photos that get submitted, those are the two big ones. Rainbows is number one, hail is number two. So I got a feeling if it's going to hail tonight, you're going to let us know. And that's fine because we need to know that. Breaking it down more, straight line wind threat. It's generally the same spot just because they could create some bowing segments, 1 or 2 cases, and you can produce a very strong wind gust that could get up there over 55 miles per hour. Your tornado threat, which I know is the one everyone likes to focus on, it's non-zero. The only issue with this is the base of the cloud itself is wavering. In some areas of wave country, it's a little lower than others. What I mean by that is that if the base of the cloud is a little higher up, even if it were to form and say even spin and form a funnel cloud, if it's got a huge gap to go before it gets to the tree line or even down to the ground level where we are, it may not connect completely. So it just stays a funnel cloud and dissipates. When you have cloud bases that form really low to the ground, and then you get something spinning, that funnel cloud develops, it doesn't have to go far. And it hits the tree line in the ground, and there you go. You got your full-on tornado that is taking place. This scenario, it depends on terrain more than anything. And this is a kind of up and down terrain part of Kentucky. But in some areas, you may be in a spot if there were any rotating storms. You could get a little close to some of these isolated funnel clouds that could develop. I just don't say it's a likely issue, but if they could, that's the kind of thing we're going to be looking at, is if we get reports of it, what is your terrain like? How confident do we feel that you are in an immediate danger in this kind of scenario? And but still, Weather Service likely, if they see any type of rotating thunderstorm that could produce anything in a funnel or not, they could still issue a tornado warning, even if it doesn't touch down. So just make sure you guys have a way to get alerts tonight, especially when you go to bed. Make sure you have a Wave weather app ready to go, notifications. You can adjust those, plug in your weather radios, that kind of ordeal, charge up your phones just in case. But I don't want to talk about it on too much on the blog time, because again, I don't think of all the threats I've mentioned to you, this one's the lower end one of the threat side here. Okay, let me show you a wider view. This is going to be the severe outlook, which is supposed to be for tomorrow. It didn't display there because we're not worried about tomorrow. All right, so let's get into an hour-by-hour setup. Okay, is everybody good at this point? I explained a lot. Type 43. 43 if you're good. Type 43 if everyone's all right. Everyone understands what I've said so far on the two pieces. This afternoon, moving into East Kentucky. Tonight, developing around Evansville and southern Indiana, and then moves in late tonight into the overnight hours with flash flooding and heavy rain kind of scenario, hail, damaging winds, and then your trail threats the least on the list. Everyone's good. All right, let's move on. How about an hour-by-hour setup? Know where you are on this map. This is crucial because sometimes we can't always explain exactly where you're at on here, so it's important to you to take that ahead of yourself there and kind of just make sure you study the counties. Most of you know where you are in relation to Shelbyville, or you know where you're in relation to E-Town or Louisville. So here's how it stands for this morning. Overall, it looks to be initializing fairly well. Now, as I advance this, we get into this afternoon, storms popped in across East Kentucky. They moved real fast, so you really didn't see much. But it's generally in this spot here for the afternoon round. Here in Louisville, we've already had our quiet period for a while. If this morning blob approaches between now and lunch, it'll fade out completely. And then we get a break. Nice chance to kind of just relax a little bit this afternoon. Not a bad setup. Temperatures in the 70s, maybe an 80 here and there. Once we get past 8, 9 o'clock, and then the second round begins to develop. And then this is where we've got to figure out, where does it develop? Is it going to be right along and north of 64, along I-64, or just south of it? Because once it forms, it will be immediately on the move to head south and east. So if it forms north of the front or north of the Ohio River, there's a good chance just about every county that touches the river and points south would be in a rain and stormy night for the area. For those that are along I-64, and I'm including Louisville on this, if it forms right along the interstate, we'll get the initial shower, heavy downpour, and then it'll all shift south and we'll be done. And so far, out of those two scenarios, you can tell that where we're going with this, that it will likely be a central Kentucky issue for rain. No matter which of the three happens, eventually they'll get to you. So right now, our highest rain total should take place into parts of Hardin County, Nelson County, Marion, LaRue, Washington County, as I mentioned, Marion, Adair, Grayson, Breckenridge, maybe Meade. And Bullitt, I would say maybe. But those are the counties right now that stand out to pick up the heaviest of the rainfall. And there could be some embedded severe weather in this, although we're in the darkness of night when these are moving through. So your severe wind potential or your severe threat in general eases. The only two things on a severe limits or items list you can get in this kind of scenario would be brief strong winds and some small hail. Can still happen, but boy, it could be quite loud tonight. So if you're a light sleeper, this is going to be probably a little rough one for you and the dogs. But if you love to sleep during the thunderstorm and that rolling thunder, this is going to be a good night for you as it drifts on by. It passes by here. We have another little lobe of moisture that may move in at some point Thursday. That's the actual front on the backside. Right now, I don't see anything severe with that since so much has been taken out of the air by that point. But there could be some little sneaky last-minute downpours, and that would be on Friday. And then we're done. Looking at the rainfall forecast, I don't have all the high-res models that can see the whole event just yet. But you can see some of the globals that we've got anyway are going into the 1 to 2 inch range. I do think a 1 to 3 inch, and this is for Louisville. So that's the idea of the storms forming north of 64, near 64. It's saying just with that idea, a 1 to 2 inch potential could fall in the Louisville metro. Obviously, if they form south of the metro and aim just in our southern counties, we will not get to that level. If it forms north than expected, a little further north than expected, then we could end up, to be honest, adding another full 1 inch to these numbers. So there could be some localized flash flooding with this kind of scenario, especially in our southern counties. I need to get a map for this for those of you in central Kentucky and even one for Indiana. Right now, we only have one for Louisville, but I'll see what I can do and try to get additional maps for this. I think you guys would like that to be able to see how that's going to look. All right, quick updates. Let's see where I'm at. Oh, there's the chances. Again, morning, midday stuff that's happening now. That's about to fade. Most is the light. While our 20% goes lower, it will go up closer to Lexington. And then as we head into this evening, we'll begin to ramp things up after dark. And that'll be that second round that will begin its southeast journey that we have to do, decide how that's going to play out. So that's how the timing works. So if you have any afternoon errands, it actually doesn't look too bad this afternoon. You'll get a break. Here's the long range here from the Euro. Once this is gone, we're still on track for a large ridge of high pressure to take control. We get into a heat bubble, if you will. Temperatures will get into the 80s, mid 80s at that. So it'll hold on for a while, at least till Tuesday next week. Then maybe around the 5th of October, I do think we will have finally a strong enough system that's going to try to shake things up and try to drive down a cold front into the eastern half of the country. I just don't know yet the dates. This is October 5th. That's far, well, this is about as far right here. The 7th is about as far as I can see out for now. I think it's going to be the 12th or maybe a few days after that. So mid-October. But I'm still seeing it, so I'm glad about that. In fact, I'm so glad about that I'm going to show you guys something that I get excited about every single year, and I get disappointed about it every spring. Do you know what it is? I won't keep you guessing. It is the first time when I look at the ensemble data there's many models that come out in long range, and this one in particular has 51 that it spits out in long range. And when I just take those 51 members in a forecast, and I'm like, okay, how many of those are saying snow looking long range into November? And most of the time it's 0. I even check it in July just for fun. But I checked it with the most recent update, and there is one. It's October 20th that first shows up, and this is like a flurry. But it's the first one of the season on the charts. Usually they fade out sometime in April. The last one does, then I don't see it again until now. So there you go. That put a smile on my face. So at least winter is trying to say, hey, don't forget, we will try to come back someday. but right now it's too busy for us. All right, guys, appreciate your comments as always. Stay inside. Just stay close to the Wave Weather app for all the forecast updates. Again, not major issues in the next few hours, but it's going to be tonight into early Thursday. It's going to be a little wild on the radar, so make sure you stay close because, again, 1 to 3 inches of rain could cause some problems on traveling, especially. Now, a lot of people around here, as you guys know, forget how to drive in rain after 3 days of dry weather. So imagine 2 weeks of dry weather. It's going to be a little wild and bumpy out there, right? All right, take care. I will see you guys come up at 11 o'clock. A lot to cover again with that breaking news that's happening out of Bardstown. We'll have that and the latest, of course, on the radar trends. Take care, and I will see you guys coming up on the flip side.